Have you ever stopped to consider why the majority of diligent individuals labor their entire careers yet never accumulate substantial wealth? They adhere to the conventional path, doing precisely what their parents advised, aggressively paying down their home loan as quickly as possible, only to reach retirement with a property free of debt, but little else to show. What I will outline for you is the reason this universally applauded strategy, the one that seems the epitome of grown-up responsibility, could actually rank among the most financially detrimental choices you ever make. The issue isn't that owning your home outright is undesirable. It isn't. The issue lies in the sequence in which you chase that goal and the true price of that pursuit, a cost that almost no one accurately measures. Every single dollar you dispatch ahead of schedule to your mortgage lender is a dollar that is robbed of the chance to multiply in another venue. And in the realm of building prosperity, the power of multiplication is paramount. The debate isn't about whether to settle your mortgage, but rather about the timing and the associated sacrifice. Warren Buffett famously labeled the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage the finest financial instrument on the globe. That is not an offhand remark from someone who has dedicated 70 years to scrutinizing financial tools. He stated it because he grasps a concept most never master. A mortgage is not merely a liability. A mortgage is an instrument. And like any instrument, its worth is determined solely by how you wield it. Here is his implication. The common perception is of a mortgage as a weight, an oppressive cloud, a monthly nudge that you are indebted to a financial institution. But Buffett's actual commentary on 30-year mortgages is this. He expressed it as follows. If your assumption is incorrect and interest rates decline to 2%, you simply refinance. It's a renegotiation that only benefits you. It represents an extraordinarily appealing tool for the homeowner, offering a bet that can only go in your favor, a one-sided bet. Let that resonate. When interest rates fall, you refinance to secure the lower rate. When rates climb, the bank is obligated to provide you inexpensive capital for 3 full decades. You emerge victorious in either scenario, while the bank shoulders all the risk of misjudging interest rate movements, and you assume none. Buffett expanded on this concept. If you secure a 30-year fixed mortgage and the interest proves excessively high, you can refinance at a lower rate the following week. Should it prove remarkably low, the lender is trapped with it for the full term. Now ponder why an individual who could purchase any property outright with cash would opt for a mortgage instead. The answer is his profound understanding of opportunity cost. When Buffett acquired a vacation property in Laguna Beach in 1971 for $150,000, he made a down payment of roughly $30,000, about 20%, and financed the rest with a 30-year loan. He possessed the means to buy it outright, given his existing wealth, yet he chose not to. His logic was straightforward. He believed he could likely achieve superior results with that capital compared to tying it all up in the property's equity. The funds he preserved and kept invested eventually swelled to approximately $750 million in Berkshire Hathaway stock. Pause to absorb that. There's a lesser-known anecdote. When Warren Buffett married in 1952, his net worth was around $10,000. He presented his wife Susie with a choice. His exact words were, "You know, we have 2 options. It's your decision. We can either purchase a house, which would consume all my capital and leave me depleted, like a carpenter stripped of his tools, or you can allow me to continue working on this, and perhaps one day, who knows, I might even buy a slightly larger house than we otherwise would." She chose to let him invest. They postponed buying a home until 1956. When they finally purchased one in 1958, Buffett ensured the down payment constituted only about 10% of his net worth. His explanation was candid. He genuinely wished to deploy that capital for other objectives. That Omaha home cost $31,500, and he resides in it to this day. Here's what makes this fascinating. Buffett has remarked that he felt he was spending an exorbitant $1 million on that house, even dubbing it Buffett's folly. The house itself wasn't costly, but he comprehended the potential of that capital if invested wisely. That awareness made even a modest acquisition feel lavish. He believed he could transform $31,500 into $1 million within about 12 years. He was correct. In fact, he vastly surpassed that. The house has appreciated respectably and is now valued well over $1 million. However, that same $31,500, if invested in what became Berkshire Hathaway, yielded results that are incomparable. This is the essence of opportunity cost. Every financial choice presents an alternative. The alternative you forego is the genuine price of your decision. There's a fundamental economic principle that most people learn and then swiftly disregard called opportunity cost. This may be the single most crucial lens for making astute financial decisions. One astute investor explained it this way: if you examine the most influential introductory economics textbook, it states on virtually the first page that intelligent individuals base their decisions on opportunity cost. In other words, your alternatives are what count. Your alternatives. That is the pivotal phrase. When you mail an additional $500 to your mortgage servicer this month, you feel responsible, as if you're advancing, and you may even feel virtuous. But what is your alternative? What else could that $500 achieve? If your mortgage rate is 4% and you apply an extra $500 to principal, you've effectively secured a guaranteed, and in some cases tax-advantaged, 4% return on that money. That is not terrible. But what if that same $500, invested consistently over time, could yield 7% or even 10%? The gap between 4% and 10% may seem minor initially, but over 20 or 30 years, it represents the chasm between adequacy and abundance. The same investor framed it this way: in reality, you must identify the best opportunity you can comprehend that is available to you. Once you've identified that optimal use, you measure every other option against it, because that is your opportunity cost. The most effective use of your capital becomes the benchmark against which all other uses are evaluated. There is a piece of profound wisdom that isn't discussed sufficiently. One legendary investor stated bluntly, "The first $100,000 is a bear, but you've got to do it. I don't care what you have to do. If it means walking everywhere and not eating anything that wasn't purchased with a coupon, find a way to get your hands on $100,000. After that, you can ease off the gas a little." Now, contemplate why accumulating the first $100,000 is so arduous, while everything thereafter becomes simpler. The answer is found in the mechanics of compounding. Before you possess $100,000, your net worth is almost wholly dependent on your savings rate. The arithmetic is harsh. If you save $10,000 annually, it requires a full decade just to reach that milestone, assuming zero investment returns. But after $100,000, the game transforms entirely. At a 7% annual return, $100,000 generates $7,000 in gains without any effort on your part, equivalent to an annual $7,000 bonus simply for having amassed that sum. The subsequent year, your $107,000 generates $7,490, then more and more after that. The snowball begins its descent. This is why hastening to pay off your mortgage can be so expensive. Every extra dollar directed to the mortgage company is a dollar not contributing to that critical first $100,000 pile. It is a dollar that is not compounding. The same investor likened wealth building to rolling a snowball. It helps to start on top of a long hill. Start early and try to roll that snowball for a very long time. His first rule of compounding? Never interrupt it unnecessarily. That final word is crucial: unnecessarily. Paying down your mortgage may feel necessary and responsible, but the real inquiry is whether you are interrupting your compounding for emotional reasons rather than mathematical ones. This is where discomfort arises. Most individuals do not make financial decisions based on arithmetic. They make them based on psychology. And human psychology contains some significant flaws in its programming. One phenomenon is loss aversion, or what some term deprival superreaction tendency. This means we experience the pain of owing money more acutely than the pleasure of watching investments grow. Being in debt feels unpleasant, even when that debt is mathematically beneficial. Consequently, we make choices to eliminate the negative feeling rather than to maximize our wealth. Another systemic flaw is social proof tendency. Everyone around us is paying off their mortgages as rapidly as possible. Our parents did it. Our neighbors do it. Financial pundits on television celebrate it. So we assume it must be the correct course. But popularity is not synonymous with accuracy. Then there's what psychologists call commitment and consistency bias. Once we've resolved to pay off the mortgage early, once we've informed our spouse, our friends, our financial advisor, we rationalize that decision regardless of the mathematics. We've committed, and now we must remain consistent, even if new information indicates we are mistaken. These biases do not make you foolish. They make you human. However, they can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime if you fail to recognize them. The question to pose to yourself is this: am I paying off my mortgage early because the mathematics support it, or am I doing it because it provides emotional comfort? There is no dishonor in choosing peace of mind, but you should understand the price tag attached to that peace. Now, I must present the other side because this is not a simplistic, always keep your mortgage message. Reality is more nuanced. At a shareholder meeting in 2015, an investor was asked why he and his partner never borrowed money to purchase stocks. His answer was illuminating. It's obviously true. If we'd used the leverage that some others did, we would have been much bigger. But we would have been sweating at night. And it's crazy to sweat at night. Sweating at night, that is the ultimate test. A mortgage is leverage. It is debt. And while it can be advantageous debt, it remains debt. If maintaining a mortgage while investing the difference causes you to lose sleep, to obsessively check the stock market, to worry during every downturn, then the mathematical edge is not worth it. The same investor expressed it this way: the ideal is to borrow in a way no temporary thing can disturb you. Consider whether you could endure a 30% market decline while still owing money on your house. Consider whether you could watch your investment account plummet from $200,000 to $140,000 without panicking. Consider whether you could stay the course for 20 or 30 years through recessions, corrections, and crashes. If the answer is no, then paying off your mortgage might be the right choice for you, not because of the math, but because of the psychology. There is deep wisdom in this perspective. One observer noted about seasoned investors: they would never trade money for misery. Your peace of mind has value, potentially exceeding the value of a few percentage points of return. Here is a mental model that will aid you in this decision and every other financial choice you will ever face. Instead of asking, "How do I build wealth?" invert the question, "What would destroy my wealth?" This is called inversion. One investor described it using the German mathematician Carl Jacobi's principle: invert, always invert. His memorable phrasing was, "All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there." So we invert the mortgage question. Instead of asking, "Should I keep my mortgage?" we ask, "What mortgage-related decisions would destroy my wealth?" Here is a partial list: purchasing more house than you can afford, taking on a payment that consumes so much income you cannot invest anything. That is wealth destruction. Using your home as an ATM by refinancing to extract equity and spending it on depreciating items. That is wealth destruction. Keeping a mortgage open to invest, but then failing to actually invest, spending the extra money instead. That is wealth destruction. Retaining a mortgage during retirement when you lack earned income to cover payments if investments decline. That is potential wealth destruction. Maintaining a mortgage at a high interest rate while investing in assets that yield less. That is wealth destruction. Once you know what destroys wealth, you can avoid those pitfalls. Avoiding foolishness is often more critical than striving for brilliance. Now, let's discuss what your home truly represents from a financial standpoint. When describing home ownership as an investment, one analysis suggested you are essentially making an implicit investment yielding roughly 7 or 8%. That figure accounts for everything: the shelter value, appreciation, tax benefits, and the forced savings component. Combined, it approximates 7 to 8%. That is not poor and is actually quite decent, but it is also not extraordinary. And it is relatively fixed. Your home will appreciate at whatever rate your local real estate market does. You cannot accelerate that appreciation by being smarter or working harder. Meanwhile, capital invested elsewhere can potentially earn more if you possess knowledge, patience, and the capacity to withstand volatility. Here is the crucial insight. Your home ranks among your best investments if you are not an investor, because it compels you to save, provides shelter, and likely appreciates over time. But if you cultivate genuine investment skill, your home can become an anchor, and capital trapped in home equity is capital unavailable for deployment elsewhere. This is why the wealthiest investors often maintain mortgages while channeling excess capital into businesses and investments they comprehend. Here is something that may surprise you. Some of the most affluent investors in history resided in remarkably modest homes, not because they couldn't afford better, but because they understood human nature. One billionaire investor lived in the same relatively unassuming house for nearly 70 years. In his final interview before passing at age 99, he explained why. He and his partner had observed their wealthy friends construct extravagant residences. His observation was striking. I would say in practically every case, they make the person less happy, not happier. Consider that. Lavish houses made wealthy people less content. His explanation continued. Having a basic house really helps you, but having a really fancy house is good for entertaining 100 people at once. It's a very expensive thing to do, and it doesn't do you that much good. A deliberate choice shaped his life. I decided not to live a life where I look like the Duke of Westchester or something, and I was going to avoid it. I did it on purpose. One reason pertained to his children. I didn't think it would be good for the children. You grow up in a rich family. Your duty is to use the wealth and live grandly. That is what everyone is doing with the money. You will learn from people who are doing it. His partner made the same choice, purchasing his house for $31,500 in 1958 and living there to this day. Here is what this means for you. The question isn't merely, should I pay off my mortgage, but also, should I have this much mortgage in the first place? If you bought a modest, easily affordable house, maintaining a low-rate mortgage while investing the difference makes mathematical sense. However, if you stretch to buy more house than needed with a payment that hinders investing, you've already made the error, and accelerating payoff might now be your best recourse. The game was won or lost at the purchase decision. Everything thereafter is merely optimization. I want to be unequivocal about when you should pay off your mortgage, when you are approaching retirement. The math shifts because you no longer have earned income. A mortgage payment manageable on a $100,000 salary can become daunting on a $40,000 pension. Your mortgage payoff should roughly align with your retirement date, when you cannot handle volatility. If market declines would cause you to sell at the worst moment, keeping a mortgage to invest is a looming disaster. This strategy requires the appropriate temperament, not just favorable math. When your mortgage rate is high, if you're paying 7 to 8% on your mortgage, finding a superior return elsewhere becomes significantly more challenging. The hurdle rate is paramount. When you are not actually investing the difference. This approach only works if you are disciplined enough to invest what you would have used for extra principal payments. If that money succumbs to lifestyle inflation, you are deceiving yourself. When your investments are speculative. Keeping a mortgage to invest in cryptocurrencies, meme stocks, or anything you don't understand is not sophisticated planning. It is gambling with borrowed funds. The goal is not to maximize returns at any cost. The goal is to build wealth in a manner that lets you sleep soundly, preserves your options, and aligns with your actual temperament and skills. Consider a concrete example. If you have a 4% mortgage and are tempted to pay an extra $1,000 monthly toward principal, ponder this alternative. Invest that $1,000 per month instead. At a 7% annual return over 20 years, that grows to approximately $520,000. If instead you paid off your mortgage early, saving perhaps 10 years of payments, you'd save interest but have a paid-off house and no investment portfolio. The house is worth its market value, but the portfolio is worth $520,000. Consider which position you would prefer. I must clarify, these are illustrative figures, not forecasts. Markets do not return exactly 7% annually. Some years they gain 25%, others they lose 30%. The actual outcome depends on your timing, choices, and uncontrollable factors. But the principle endures. Money compounds more rapidly when invested than when reducing debt at a lower interest rate. Here is a simple framework. Calculate your mortgage interest rate. This is your hurdle rate, the minimum return you must exceed for keeping the mortgage to be logical. Honestly assess your investment skill. Can you consistently beat that hurdle rate over time? If you know nothing about investing, the answer may be no. Honestly assess your temperament. Can you hold investments through market declines without panicking? If you sold in 2008 or 2020, the answer may be no. Make the decision based on your situation, not on what sounds sophisticated or what others are doing. Beneath all this lies a deeper question. What is financial freedom? For some, it is possessing no debt of any kind, a paid-off house, no payments, and complete simplicity. There is dignity and peace in that vision. For others, it is having a substantial portfolio, generating enough passive income to cover all expenses, including a mortgage payment. The debt remains, but it is serviced by assets. There is power and optionality in that vision. Neither is incorrect, but you must know which one you are pursuing. One investor, when asked the secret to a long, happy life, stated, "It's so simple. You spend less than you earn, invest shrewdly, avoid toxic people and toxic activities, and try and keep learning all your life. And do a lot of deferred gratification because you prefer life that way. And if you do all those things, you are almost certain to succeed. And if you don't, you're going to need a lot of luck." Notice what is absent from that list. Paying off your mortgage as fast as possible isn't there because it is not essential. What is essential is spending less than you earn, investing shrewdly, and deferring gratification. How you structure your debt is a tactical decision. The principles are what matter. When asked about the best time to buy a house, one wise investor gave an answer applicable to this entire discussion. "I think the time to buy a house is when you need one, not when the market is right, not when interest rates are low, not when your spreadsheet is optimized, when you need one." The same logic applies to paying it off. Pay off your mortgage when you need to, when you're retiring, when it causes you stress, when keeping it open no longer serves your goals. Don't pay it off because everyone says you should. Don't pay it off because it feels responsible. Don't pay it off because you saw a debt-free celebration video online. Make the decision that serves your actual life, goals, and temperament. I want to leave you with something vital. This entire debate about mortgage payoff versus investing is a good problem to have. It signifies you have excess cash flow. It means you have options and are positioned to build wealth. Most people globally do not have this problem. Most are struggling to make rent, cover an unexpected car repair, or get through the month without sinking deeper into credit card debt. The fact that you are contemplating whether to send extra money to your mortgage or an investment account already places you ahead of a vast majority. So whatever you decide, make that decision with gratitude because you are fortunate to be asking this question. And make it with eyes wide open. Understand the math, understand the psychology, and understand yourself. That final component, knowing yourself, is where most falter. They know what the spreadsheet indicates. They know what financial experts recommend, but they do not honestly evaluate their own temperament, discipline, and behavior under pressure. Ask yourself, When the market plunged 30% in 2008 or 2020, what did you do? Did you stay the course or sell at the bottom? Did you buy more or panic? Your past behavior is the best predictor of your future behavior. If you sold during a downturn, you will likely sell again. That is not a critique. It is data about your nature. And if that is your nature, then keeping a mortgage open to invest the difference is a strategy destined to fail. The math only works if you can execute it, and execution demands emotional control that many lack. The wealthy do not follow rules blindly. They comprehend the rules, understand when they apply, and make deliberate choices, sometimes paying off mortgages early, sometimes not. The distinction is they know why they are doing what they are doing. A billionaire paying off his modest home because he values simplicity is making a rational choice. A middle-class family straining to pay off their mortgage while their retirement accounts remain empty is making an emotional choice disguised as a responsible one. Same action, entirely different reasoning, entirely different outcomes. Here is the uncomfortable truth no one voices. There is no universally correct answer. The right choice depends on your interest rate, investment skill, temperament, age, income stability, goals, and a dozen other unique factors. Someone with a 3% mortgage, 20 years until retirement, a stable job, and disciplined investing habits should probably keep that mortgage. Someone with a 7% mortgage, 5 years from retirement, variable income, and a history of panic selling should probably pay it off. Same question, opposite answers. Both can be correct. What I can tell you is this: base your decision on mathematics and self-awareness, not emotion and social pressure. Your brother-in-law's opinion is irrelevant. The online debt-free celebration video is irrelevant. What your parents did in a completely different interest rate environment is irrelevant. What matters is your situation, your numbers, your psychology, and your goals. Individuals who build genuine wealth over time share one trait: they think independently. They question conventional wisdom. They calculate the numbers. They know themselves. They make decisions that serve their actual lives, not decisions that look impressive to others or feel virtuous momentarily. Most people devote more time to planning a vacation than to planning their financial strategy. They outsource their thinking to the most confident voice, regardless of its knowledge. They follow the crowd because following feels safe, even when the crowd is heading in the wrong direction. In 50 years, 2 individuals will reflect on their lives. One paid off their mortgage as rapidly as possible. Every bonus, tax refund, and extra dollar went straight to principal. They made the final payment at age 52, celebrated, and felt a weight lift. They possess a paid-off house and modest savings. They are comfortable and followed the rules. The other maintained a low-rate mortgage and consistently invested the difference for decades. Month after month, year after year, they channeled money into investments instead of extra principal payments. They did not celebrate a mortgage payoff at 52. They continued making that monthly payment routinely while their investment account expanded. Now at 75, they have a larger portfolio, more options, and the same paid-off house, eventually paid off later, perhaps at 65 or 68. The house was paid off either way. But here is where the narratives diverge. The first person has a paid-off house worth its market value. Their retirement income derives from Social Security and their final year's savings. They are comfortable. They can pay bills and are not in trouble. But their options are limited. If they wish to help a grandchild with college, take a long dreamed-of trip, or face an unexpected expense, they must deliberate carefully. Their margin is thin.